is first introduce each of our panel members, and then we're going to start asking them questions. So I'm just going to do it just to save time, and you just correct me if I'm wrong about anything. Okay? So right here we have Shivarish and Stephanie Kirketchian. Shivarish for many, many years has had a business where he sells jewelry. So he sells to vendors mostly, but some are stores.
Some stores, yeah, wholesale and retail, which means to stores and also to consumers.
Yeah. Okay, and he's been very successful and blessed in that, but done it for the Lord. Stephanie is a fitness instructor,
personal trainer, coach.
So she has her own business. She's been very successful. Here we have Rick and Peggy Hutton. They are the co-owners and co-managers of High Tech Screens.
Wow.
And shades. So they provide these screens that you can't see them even when they're closed, phantom screens. And they've also been very successful in their business through the years, but have done it for the Lord. I think they work together on that. Then we have Brian and Trang Knockleby. And Brian was a dentist for many years, had his own practice. Now he works for the state of California and tries to keep other dentists in line. And Trang is a pharmacist. And they both have worked at those businesses for many years and been very successful for the Lord. So we're going to find out. And they're all, they don't want me to say this, but they're all older than the rest of you. So, we could have asked you guys. I know you know a lot about being a Christian in business, and some of you have businesses, but they've been around the block more than we have. Plus, they're our special guests, so we want to put them on the spot. Sure. All right, so I'm going to ask you a question, and then you guys can just, whoever wants to speak up, please do. Hopefully, we'll hear from all of you at some point in our panel discussion, but we understand that there's some that are going to talk more and others that are going to talk less. That's okay. Don't feel self-conscious about that at all. That is no problem whatsoever. We expect that. But if anybody talks too long, I'll just go like that. No. All right. So we want to just start. I just want to start with that general question and see what you have to say to it that Malay asked me the other night. And that is it possible? I think it's a legitimate question because the verses in the Bible, like the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. And we know, we've been around enough to see that there's a lot of abuses and problems with people trying to make a lot of money. And then when they get money in a business, there's a lot that can go wrong, according to God. So how would you answer that initial question? Is it possible to be a successful business person and still please the Lord? Is that possible, first of all? And why or why not? What do you think?
Well, it certainly is possible.
Absolutely.
As a Christian, like in the dental community, as a Christian, you want to, you live before the face of God. And so when you do your work, you want to do a good job. And that just filters down to, the patients. They appreciate that. In my business, I never really focused on the money. It was I wanted to do a good job. I wanted to follow the Lord. So I didn't do unethical type of stuff like I saw elsewhere. I never did that. And, the Lord blesses that. I mean, we never had any issues with money. And as a dentist, you could make a good living doing good dentistry. You didn't have to have all the bells and whistles and do all the soft tissue management programs, which was something a way to make a lot of money. Early in my career, most of the continuing education classes that we would take had to do with like how to do better dentures, how to do better fillings, things like that. And then as time went on, it was like how to make more money, how you can do this to make more money. It was a real shift within dentistry itself, and I would assume in other professions too, to where the focus became not so much necessarily putting out a good product, but making more money. And that never drove me, and I was always able to do very well. So you can most certainly be a business person, make a lot of money, and please God.
Someone else want to comment on that kind of initial question, and then we'll move on?
I was just going to say that, I look at success as a measure of your own goals, against your own aspirations, right? I mean, that's really what success is. This family here, this church, this wave is very successful in what they do because they honor God with it. So success, we're talking about success in the context of money now. That's the different, if you want to put success in that category.
So you just answered another question, which is, can you be successful and never make any money? And you're saying yes.
Success is relative to your goals. Success is relative to your aspirations and a measure of your achieving your goals, your own personal end, whatever that end might be, objective. But
and I think wealth too is subjective. I mean, to me,
Right.
wealth, this much money for me is a lot. So I could measure my success based on how much money I think I would want versus somebody else's.
I was going to say.
So you have to, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it is a relative thing too in that sense. So it's very crucial how you define success
Right.
financially.
I'm sorry.
Your turn.
No, sorry. We don't pretend to be, titans of industry. We've trusted God in what we've done, and it's taken a lot of faith in what in our walk. But just in what you're saying, I kind of came from the opposite side of that. I worked in environmental consulting for 20 years in groundwater science, and it was kind of a great thing to do. It was really interesting, but it didn't pay enough money. So I came into my business with one goal in mind: to make money. So, and God has really, kind of worked along for many years with me, just, kind of chasing me and shaping me in that. In fact, when you, this is a lot for me today. I'm learning a lot from these questions you're asking, because my goal had been to make a lot of money. And if you work hard at anything, you're going to get better at it, no matter what it is. And yeah, I've gotten better at it, but it's been a struggle, a daily struggle for me to look at profits over people. And God's working in my heart with that. And I could go into more of that, but I don't want to take too much time. So
I like to add to that. Absolutely, you definitely can run a business and be successful and please the Lord. I think with my business and my way of thinking about it is you want to put Him on top, and God says whatever you do, do it all to the glory of God, whether you eat, drink, or sleep. So I think if you have a mindset of serving Christ in the vocation and the business that you choose and the service, because everything it's about service. You're serving people.
Exactly.
The more you serve people, you will. And I always tell this to my clients, I'm here to serve you. I'm going to make a few bucks at it as I serve you, as I provide for your needs. And my needs are diamonds and gold and all that kind of stuff, which is okay. See, that's not. You could look at even that going, wow, that's kind of evil, because what good is that? What kind of a substantial need is that? But you know what? God created it. It came from the earth. It's going to be in heaven. So you got to bring Christ into your mindset while you're thinking about doing a business or developing a business or starting a business. And that's what's helped me keep online in my journey.
It's been a walk that you and I shared on that years ago in 2008 when the economy really crashed, and we were both praying for our businesses very hard. Coming into our business, I left this consulting business firm. I was an employee, and that was the biggest boost in my faith ever. I just had to depend on what God was going to do. There was no longer what I learned in college. There's no longer that skill set, a completely different skill set. So I just prayed, got on my knees more than ever before. So stepping out into that type of scary place made me more dependent on Christ. Absolutely.
Okay, well, that's a perfect segue into my next question that I wrote down, and it also, if you want, came from Malay 2 nights ago, and that is wanting to make a lot of money necessarily wrong? So you mentioned, you wanted to make money, and you mentioned, I'm going to make some money. Is wanting to make a lot of money necessarily wrong?
It's not necessarily wrong, but I think Rick sort of said something a couple seconds ago about it's all about motivation. Why do you want to make a lot of money? Is it
Why?
because you want to serve others and give to the Lord's kingdom? Put His kingdom first. Is it because you want to have a 1,700 room house like that place?
Oh, yeah.
Winter Tour. We went to Winter Tour the other day.
Is that what you want? 4 people living in there? It really comes down to motivation. That's why when I started talking, I said we live before the face of God. And you just, that's, really, ideally, that would be your mindset. Whatever you do, whether it's, engineering, whether it's dentistry, whether it's yard maintenance or whatever it is. You can serve God in all those venues. And that's the bottom line is seeking God with all your heart and not living for yourself so that you can spend it on your pleasures and your wants.
Now, how would you know that? So we hear the answer. I think most of us probably at least hear that as, yes, that's the answer. It's why you want to make the money. That's the important thing. Not just for self and your own pleasures, but for God and for others and kingdom of God. How do you evaluate that? That must be something that you can easily slip back and forth from good to bad motivations. How do you know if you're having good motivations in all your work in your business and even then when the money is rolling in?
I think it has to do with being able to identify your idolatry. Because even if you desire to work really hard, want to make a lot of money to serve the Lord, but at the same time, while doing that, you forsake corporate worship, you forsake personal prayers, you forsake serving others, then it becomes an idolatry. Even though you might think that that's what you want to do. But all the other ways of serving and loving God, you forsake. And that's when it's wrong.
Other thoughts on that?
You will fall into greed. You will fall into sin, with your money. As a business person, if you do make a lot of money, no one's invincible. It's just like your walk with Christ. How many of you perfectly walk with Christ, or how many in your other parts of life? So it's not like it's just got to become a part of your enmity, whatever. It's got to become a personal thing. It's not so much this thing you want to put on a pedestal. It becomes a part of your life. Because if you're going to start a business, God has put that desire in your heart. And if He's put that desire in your heart, that means that's your ministry. And I talked to Rick about this because that's your ministry. You got to look at it that way. You can't say, well,
you
this
mean
is
like being starting a church or being
right.
a missionary.
You might be indulging, and you might be so engulfed in your business where you might not have time to serve at church as much as you'd like to. But you don't want to look at that as, oh, that's a bad thing. No, because you're serving in your business. You are your employees are people that you're ministering to because these are people that you are employing. They're making money. They're paying for their food. They're paying for their kids. And if they're Christians, they're giving to the Lord too. So you're not going to be perfectly obedient all the time. And I've fallen to sin. And even a few weeks ago, I had some issues I had to deal with because I was tempted and I kind of swayed. But by the grace of God, you repent and you get back on track. And the other way you keep yourself in balance is you put hedges, accountability, with your spouse and other people, and just kind of keep an open book, so that you don't end up becoming the secret sinner and fall into greed and tax evasion or fraudulent, selling fake jewelry or drilling people's teeth that don't need to be drilled, or putting awnings on, or whatever.
Yeah, I just seen the blessings too for me. I saw it was God. It wasn't my skill set. Now it was. And we had talked about this, and putting people in the mission statement of serving was what really was a light bulb that went off for me. It's just, I'm a bottom line guy. I can find the profit in anything. I did that in consulting. That's just to backtrack real quick. I worked in a scientific field, but I had more of a business head and business background. So I made money for this company that didn't really know how to make money selling brain power. So I was intrigued by that. So I brought that same mindset into this business, thinking about profitability, marketing, that sort of thing. Peggy is the one who has really shown me that we're serving people. This is about serving. It's not about profitability. So I had to back off. I take my foot off the accelerator there, and kind of think, what is the mission statement here? What are we doing? And then shoot Mars amplified that a few years later. So then giving up, or giving to God, and letting God control things, particularly in our tough times, He's blessed. He's blessed us. And I realized, okay, this is gifts. This is not something we're doing which is special than anybody else. He's obviously in control here. So obviously we're working for Him. So obviously we're going to give to Him. Obviously we're going to put Him as the focus of what we're doing. But it doesn't always happen day to day. I guess, as I mentioned earlier, I get caught up in that balance. Oh man, we can make $1,000 more if we just do this. It's not that it's unethical, but maybe it is unethical. Might be talking to me right now. But sometimes it's not illegal or anything like that. But I'm just saying that we could serve people better sometimes. And my loving wife here tells me this is about loving people. So I really appreciate that. So.
I also think it's there's a lot of a conscience issue. So you want to educate your conscience. You want to be in the Word consistently because we drift easily. But if you're in the Word, and you're following those means of grace, right? You're like Trang said, not forsaking the fellowship of the believers, and you're in prayer and you're reading, and however that is in your world at that time. That's what kind of anchors, I think that's key because our conscience can lead us one way or that way too if we're uneducated. Like, I know Dave knows because he's taught me a lot about that, I was like really extreme. You can't do all these things. I was very legalistic in my thinking, but my conscience wasn't educated. I hadn't grown in the Word enough to understand there's gray areas, there's different zones. So it's not always black and white. Like even whatever each one of us do. I mean, I'm a personal trainer, so I'm working physically with people one-on-one. And so years ago, I probably been like, no way, not going to do that because, going to make personal, it's too worldly. But as I've grown in the Lord and He just keeps showing me of the gifts that I have and just my strengths, it's like, okay, I have these things. I want to use them for the Lord. And this is an amazing way that I can get money and also give back to Him. And that's kind of been the push. It's like we can give more. God, I can give this money. And it's been an excitement. And then He blesses it more. And so I just think that conscience, you've got to anchor it in the Word with the Lord, with people that know you, and that is the key in whatever you do, even if you don't have your own business. It's that, it guides you. Yes, it can be misled, but you need to keep working and getting in the Word and that soft conscience. And God shows you through the Spirit. I really believe that. I mean, there's conviction, and then there's, like he said, he did something and he told someone else, they probably been, what is that? But in his conscience, he knows that time that you didn't do the tax, I was going to say it, that was not okay. And then, of course, the household, he's like all angry and it just messes everything else up. So, anyway, that's this.
Got to keep a clean conscience. Yeah, that's a great thermometer of whether we're doing the right thing or not. Are we sure that God is pleased by it? Romans 14:23. If you doubt that something is right, if you doubt that God is pleased, then don't do it. You have to act in faith, knowing and believing that God is pleased with this thing. So are you sure it's right?
It's a constant evaluation. It's constantly ongoing. Just checking that you're in step with the Spirit in whatever transpires.
There's a direct correlation, except with me and with us, that the closer, I want to amplify what you said, the more reading we do and studying and in the Word, the more successful the business is, and or the more peace we have what we're doing.
Absolutely.
Even things don't go wrong. It's like, all right, you're in control, Lord. So, if I'm not reading, if I'm not praying, I'm getting off in that other world, which is not a good place to be in business.
Yeah, so I guess you could. There's a couple of diagnostic tools you can kind of do that I've done. Is one, am I engaging in unethical activity? Am I doing procedures that don't necessarily need to be done, or something like that? If you're engaging in unethical activity, that you can kind of diagnose that. Okay, I've gone off track. The other one that I'll use is, where does my mind go? What am I thinking about? If my mind is continually going to, I'm going to increase my bottom line, and that's where my focus is. I've gone off the wrong track. So those are a couple of kind of self-diagnostic tools one can use to make sure that you're kind of going down the right path.
Dad, I have a question that kind of goes along.
We're going to ask at the end. We're going to have an opportunity at the end for questions. I said,
Hooray.
there's papers over there. You can write them down if you can't remember them.
No mercy.
Thank you so much. We will have an opportunity. Let's talk about some specifics, and see, some of your questions might be covered in what we talk about, so you never know. How does being a Christian business person affect, and I'm going to ask a few parts to this question, but let's start with how you treat employees. So how does being a Christian business person affect how you treat employees?
Tee off on that. We got 4 of them, 5 of them.
Yeah, so we have 5 employees, and so we just feel like we're being hypocrites if we aren't living out our faith and how we treat our employees and how we treat our customers, and so we give them time off, or whatever they have, whatever they need. We try and help them out. We give them bonuses at the end of the year, and so we try to be, it's like we try and help them out, whatever they need, and just showing that we care about them, not just as employees, but as, people, and trying to love them, in a godly way, and showing that we care about them personally. And I think that's important to
And that will bring with it opportunities to share the gospel.
Right.
Which is that when you own your own business, there are certain privileges, I guess, versus working for somebody else. If you're working for somebody else, sometimes you can't necessarily do what you would want to do with evangelism and whatnot. When you own your own practice, you can share the gospel. You can take advantage of. That was one of the good things when I had my practice for 16 years. We had lots of discussions. I had both Christians and non-Christians in my practice. And so you most definitely wanted to treat them right because you're trying to evangelize. And you do not want to come across as hypocritical and actually smear the name of Jesus. You want to show them Christ. The way God was gracious to you, you want to be gracious to them. And so there are certain advantages of owning your own business when it comes to evangelism.
And I think that having employees, once again, it wraps in the covering of serving. When you going into a new field or new product line, we went to a lot of seminars to try to find out, how to grow this business, both technically and sales-wise. And I always remember one gentleman who was an attorney who was giving a seminar. At one point, he asked the crowd, he said, "What's the most important people in your business? What's the most important person you think in your business?" How many people think customer? Because we retail mostly. No, customer, and almost 100% says, no, it's your employees. Your employees are your most important asset in your business. And he was speaking from the standpoint, happy employees, happy business, and they're going to, actually amplify your sales. And he was absolutely right. But having to serve your employees, like I said, it's a fertile ground for what life's all about. We're just played into the mission statement for our company is to serve. But we also have employees that have come from, kind of rough backgrounds and poverty, considered poverty, except for children. Also have their daughters.
Jillian works for us,
Jillian
and Eric's
somewhere.
worked for us before too. Eric could catch him.
But the 4 guys have been our installers. They've had kind of a rough life, and they've got not great, parent figures, and a lot of drugs and alcohol and that sort of thing. And it's been a blessing to see God work in their lives. Just economically, they come up and start owning houses and able to. One guy's he lived in a garage his whole life, right? And with his parents, and he's never lived outside the house. And he's like 30 years old. He got an apartment and a
He was
truck.
in prison too.
He was in prison, yeah. So it's just.
So he has more issues, the back child support or
So we have to swim through all that
levies,
with them,
tax
So I think that God, that's the Holy Spirit that works with Peggy and dealing with him and those issues is hopefully shedding some light. Now we haven't got to the point where we're doing a Bible study. It's kind of interesting because Lisa, when she was out, prayed heavily about that, about having a Bible study. It's kind of funny because she's I have a word from God. You're supposed to do a Bible study with the men that work for you, and we didn't talk much.
Yeah,
about
Rick was
that.
supposed to do Bible study.
And she was, she was praying, she was, Lord, it's going to be a paid Bible study. He's going to pay them to go to Bible study. I'm going to pay him? Focus on that right away. But the thing is, yes, we're going to eventually do that. So, but I don't know how God's going to bring that about. It is in the future. He has me going through right now a Genesis project, which is more about, which I didn't realize before I got into this, is about addictions and getting through addictions. And a lot of these guys have had that. So I'm praying, please pray for us that we want to bring these gentlemen and their families hopefully into some sort of a teaching if they're open to it. So.
I think one of the things you, as a believer, as a business owner, and as a boss, and I don't have employees, but I have people that I work with that are, you could look at them as employees because I got my vendors who I bring all the orders for them to fabricate, and then I have a bunch of retailers that I consign merchandise into their stores, which is like investing in their business because I put it in their showcases and they don't have to pay for it. So it's inventory for them and they pay me when it's done, when they sell it. So, so I could look at them as, somewhat employees too. But I think one of the big things that when you say that question is you could be gracious to your people. You can show grace to, because the world does not show grace. The world shows greed. The world shows self-protection. The world shows self-centeredness. But when you are, employing people or you're working with people that are not of Christ, and they see that opportunity that they see the grace when they fail. Because a lot of my fabricators, they fail. They almost fail every week in my special orders. I have to redo things over and over again because there's a miscommunication or he's just too busy and he didn't pay attention or whatever they go. It could be even small things that could become irritating. But because I'm a believer and I trust in God's sovereignty and I trust that God's over all this, and I look at them as minister opportunities and not only money. I don't see the dollar sign only. I could be gracious. I go, well, I understand, no problem. You think about their lives. They got lives. They got families. They got burdens. They got their sin they're dealing with that's not been dealt with. So they're burdened. So I have an opportunity, give them a cup of cold water by being gracious to them. I have an opportunity with my retailers to be gracious to them and not be on them because they're not performing. They're not selling the goods. The goods are, I got X amount of dollars there. Why aren't you turning it? Because, it's sitting there. That money should be turning because I don't profit until it turns. But they look at it as when I have this attitude of not this, sacred cow attitude where I think they're not performing enough and my money is just sitting there and it's not doing anything. It's grace. It's something they don't see. They don't understand. They scratch their heads and wonder.
Okay, let's ask one more specific question and then we'll give you an opportunity to ask questions for a few minutes, but how does being a Christian business person affect how you treat customers? I'll say it again. Think about it. How does being a Christian business person affect how you treat customers?
I think it's basically what Shavash just said too. As I only have one-on-one clients, or I have groups of clients, as I do group, all those kind of things. It's showing grace, and it's being kind of a cut above the world, in the sense of the world is cutthroat or harsh, or even I don't even think necessarily depending on your business. It's not like, oh well, for me, I have to charge a certain amount per hour if I'm training you or this or that, but not even giving a product that's cheap. I don't think that's necessarily the answer. You're worth it. I mean, your time and who you are, your education, it's worth a certain amount. I think charge that amount, but be way over the top in what you provide. For me, it's going the extra mile. If I'm training someone and I'm a nutrition coach, and they're in town, I would maybe go to the store and like, go, look, this is how you read the, I would go the extra mile. Yes, I'm charging a decent amount. I'm not going to go way too high, but like finding that balance and treating them, because if you, sometimes two people think, oh, humble, 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 and then it's like, it's you know what I mean? That's just not the way the world is. So what, it loses its value. So what, and God has made us this way, you know, or we have these gifts and that we should charge appropriately because, you know what, we are worth it because Christ did for us, you know. So it's that mindset needs to change, that we need to be like the dirt bottom. Now, if someone comes to you and they're hurting, yeah, then you adjust. There's a sliding scale. And I'm just, again, talking in my world, but that's something I've learned because oh no, but I have like so many certifications. I have been doing this since like years. You know, why am I doing that? Just I want to be humble and look like Christ? Well, that's maybe not what God wants because I want to give with that. You know what I mean? So there's a mindset, and I'm sure you too. Like if you give a good product, right? So I feel like treating them like fair customers, treating them like you would, you're in the world, but charging appropriately, but you know, giving that extra mile, whatever that might be. It might be more time. It might be, you know, you spend an extra 20 minutes, or I don't know how that looks in each venue, but I just know. I think that, I don't know if that makes sense.
That's a concept of added value.
Yeah, it's like we are. Why did God have us here? We have to make money, right? And then what are you going to do? You know, I think it's okay to charge and be worth it, not because we're worth it, it's because of Christ. And showing that and getting into those higher things. Because if you're always shooting low, you're only in this barrel of people or this group. You shoot high because God made you that way, and you deserve. Yeah, and that's the pay you get. Now perform because of Jesus.
So what you're doing is they're coming to you as a professional and wanting your services or your product. So you want to. I kind of look at it. I want to put. God says always look at others more important than yourself. So when someone comes to me and looking for a product or a service, I definitely, you know, everybody knows you're going to make money. It's not like a hidden thing. You're not hurting anyone by charging them. You're called to make a profit. You don't have to gouge them. You don't want to overcharge them, but you also don't want to kill the market either and undercharge, because then you're messing the market up. You're causing issues, and I have a lot of that in our industry. People flood the market and they kill the price of things, which is not healthy either for business. So you look in the middle in the charging ethics, but serve them. You want to serve. That's what you're doing. You're serving. These people are coming to you for a service or a product. They want it. They desire it. Give it to them, and give it to them abundantly, as if you were them. Give it to them better than as if you were them. You know, serve them above and beyond.
I think as Christians, it comes more naturally, if you say the Holy Spirit, to do what business seminars will teach you to grow a business is you want to serve people once again, and having that love, real concern about that person and that value, and giving them added value is what they teach you in that sales class. But we want to do it naturally. It does kind of happen more naturally through the Holy Spirit. We just want to give them added value, give some extra that the same sort of company would not give them, because it's more through love and concern.
For me, you know, it's like when Rick and I, you know, go out to, you know, someone's home if they want a motorized awning or something. You know, it's like Rick and I both go out. He's a technical person. I'm the color consultant. You know, and so what's really important to me is I listen to every single thing they say. You know, I kind of look around their house at the colors or, you know, everything. And then I want to make sure that, you know, I ask them, do you want to match the house, or do you want something that's, you know, gonna, you know, pop more or be more fun, or, you know, so I try and understand, you know, what they want, because I don't want to give someone something they don't want or something that they're not going to be happy with, you know. And so that way I feel like, you know, we're serving the Lord.
Yeah.
You know, we're being honest. You know, we're there at their house, and so we want them to feel like they're important. We're serving them, you know, and we would tell them, if, you know, that if it's not something our product would serve them the best, we tell them about another company, or the, you know, it's like that's not. You don't want to. I don't think you want, you know, what we offer. You know, it's like I think you'd be better off, you know, this product or that product.
Because you're going to serve them better.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I think it goes back to that. I think I mentioned Coram Deo. Did I say that earlier?
What you said before the face of God.
Yeah, before the face. Coram
Which
Deo.
is what that means.
Before the face of God. Yeah, so if you live with that concept that you're living before the face of God, when patients would come into my practice, I didn't really treat any patient different. They came in and I tried to give them an honest and open treatment plan. So I wasn't trying to steer them in any, I trying to say exploit them in any one direction, because, God brought them into my office and I'm going to treat them as if they were my mother. In fact, there were some dental educators that said, that the best thing you can do is to treat every patient as if it was your own mother, which is true. So, if
In the medical field, you have to have that mindset to
Yeah.
not cut corners, to not.
You're working on people's
sloppy.
bodies, and you want to do what is right. And then if you think, if you're living coram deo, then that whole concept just helped me. So I never really deviated from patient to patient on how I should treat that particular patient.
Impartiality.
Yeah.
Trying anything to add before?
Well, I am in the hospital system. I don't have my own business, but I was, in the supervisor position for a period of time. So it's a different environment, but, same thing. I think based on just basically, applying the biblical principles of how you treat others. So like my customers would be other departments, directors or managers, and how I deal with them. And there's such politics, believe it or not, in the hospital system, like huge politics, It's like you only want to do what benefits your department. And the battle is real, and people won't compromise because it's a system, so everybody has to contribute and play their part in order for it to deliver excellent care to the patient. So when not everybody's playing in the same playground, properly, then the patient suffers. So I have to have that mindset. When there's an issue that come up that needs a solution, I always try to advocate, like, what can I do in the department, my own department, to contribute to that, that goal, versus what am I going to do to better my department, and so that's a different environment.
Thank you. Before we take a few questions, I just wanted to actually remind you all that, because you may hear all these things about how putting others first and treating people with grace and understanding when they make mistakes that mess up your business, and not overcharging and not going in with the mindset of what's the best thing I can sell them for my profit, but instead going in with the mindset of what's the best thing for them, and maybe even telling them about another company. When you hear all this, you probably think, if you have any of the typical mindset, these people will never make any money doing this. And there are people in the business world that will literally tell you that. If you do that, you will never make any money. But I just want to remind you that these people all have made a lot of money by God's grace. God has taken care of them very well. So you can practice all these things that seem in the world's mind to be detrimental to making money, but you can still make money.
I got to disagree with you. I'm sorry.
You disagree with what?
I do, because the world, what we're talking about, what God gives us are good things, and people see those good things. What business schools will teach you, what medical school will teach you, is relational type of selling. That's what we do. And that's what you build that relation, and you have to care about people to have a relation. Even though ours is very short, it might
we
be.
have repeat customers.
We have a repeat because of that, and relational sales here, relations in medical field. So the world understands that that's a formula that works, and you'll be taught that in many different business schools and sales schools. However, is it genuine or not? And who's driving it? I'm saying that's the key.
Yeah.
When the Holy Spirit's driving it, people see that it's genuine. It's not just trying to make the sale. But those, yeah, I mean,
and the blessing is guaranteed. I mean, again, I go back to that. Like, I truly believe that the blessing will come. One form or the other.
Well, people appreciate the honesty.
Yes, and things just flow. Like, patient was just really sad when he sold his practice. That was like the practice in town that they only practice they want to go to. And,
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Thank you. Raylan, what's your question?
Yes. Okay. So this is just like a question I feel like we've been asking ourselves recently. We've been very blessed, and we've talked a lot about like real estate, and we were able to get our first property, just kind of getting our foot in the door doing that, which has been a huge blessing. But the question that we feel like we're kind of asking ourselves is, what is the balance of being content and at peace with what we have, what God has given us now, but also being motivated and focusing on growing our business or finances? Is it wrong to be constantly thinking like, what's next? Because it's like we were able to, get this property, and that's kind of what we were working towards, our goal. And then as soon as we're here, we're like, okay, now what's next? Like, what are we gonna do? And how do we get there? And is there like, what's the balance of being content and like thankful? Wow, God has provided this amazing opportunity, exactly what we have been praying for. Being content in that, and then also like having the motivation to work towards something more.
Good question.
Well, God says, be productive and multiply, and till the ground and bring the fruit out. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think you should do that. What else are you gonna do? You can become bored if you don't. Make more money, but you know what? I'm gonna tell you guys one thing. Don't be stingy. Don't be a tightwad. Don't be tight with your money. Be loose. Give it freely. Give it like you might look like you're a dummy the way you're giving, because you will never outgive God. I can always say that about ourselves. Is that we have never outgive God. There was a point in my life when I was in debt, and I was counseled to, well, maybe you should slow down your giving and get out of debt first, and then start giving again. And I took that advice, and that was the worst, 8 years of my life financially, because I was not at peace. I was like, I had my priorities all screwed up. And I'm not saying that's wrong. Some people could do that. I wasn't disciplined enough. I'm more emotional and more, ambitious, I guess, whatever, passionate. So I think if you put giving as your first and foremost motivation, and you're not like this with your money, and you're not like stingy, let go of it. No sacred, God said no sacred cows in our life. And we were counseled that when we were doing some financial counseling, because we're in trouble. We're about to lose everything or go bankrupt or whatever. So, no, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think you should do it. Plan. Try to stay out of debt as much as you possibly can, though. Don't go into debt. I'm not going to say, I used to say never ever, but that's not reality. That was when I was a little more extreme. But the least amount of debt as possible. Save and buy your next house or whatever you guys are planning to do.
Yeah, it's good to have goals, and and then with your children too. It's like you want to provide for your children, and so there's always goals with that. Like if they go to private school versus public school, or you want them to have the opportunity to travel. You could travel as a family. That could be a goal if that's important. Because I think that family time is something that is like so valuable, and it's and I think God really honors that, and the kids don't forget that, the family time, and so there's could be saving, you could even start saving for retirement. You're never too young to start saving for retirement.
That's true. That's a very good point.
And so I think that just having it's just like Rick and I have always constantly had different goals. Like we got our first house, and then so we wanted to, I guess our dream thing was to build a home, but we ended up not doing that, and we were totally happy with that.
So you said different goals. We've had a lot of goals we wanted to achieve, but not different goals. Different
well,
goals.
as we've aged,
Oh, I see. So
Not
different things
different between
yes,
each other.
trying to clarify.
yeah, not
something
different between us, but
along
just
the
different, for our family.
That's the thought I had too. I mean, I'm clearly, I think, the senior in the room here, and going back and seeing how much time.
Yeah, we both are.
Yeah. But when you're young, I got to tell you, I mean, that mindset of am I thinking too much? Should I be content right now? Keep moving forward. I'm not saying be discontent, but there's so much you're going to do between your age and my age. There's so much you can do.
So many
And
blessings.
I believe it's part of what God, the creative mind of God. We have the character of God. God creates things. So our creation and what we want to do next is in our dreams, and what we want to strive for in our dreams that are that is within within serving Him. And then of course when money comes through that, or if money comes through that, it's more money to give to His kingdom. So don't ever think that you're feeling like, hey, this is it. Keep moving forward.
And remember that this life is a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sitting here approaching mid-50s. I mean, it goes by so fast. If you keep that mindset, this really isn't your true home. Your home is to come. Is to come. And so if you have that mindset, and you are living before the face of God, and your mind isn't. I mean, you could. I kind of know when I fall into idolatry just based off where my mind is. You know, if you keep those things in check, like Peggy and Rick were saying, set goals, lay out goals, and pursue the things that God puts on your heart, your desires. There's nothing wrong with even having more than one piece of property or anything like that. It's just it's just a matter of ultimately where is your heart, where is your mind, and remember, you're not taking anything with you, and that is your true home. So if you have that perspective, I think and trust the Lord, He'll guide you down that path.
And find compromise too in your marriage, because our goals were the same goals, but daily sometimes they're not. Very often they're not. And I think the ministry of Christ needs to be exercised so much between a husband and wife, particularly when you're working together. We've worked together for 20 years. Married 36. So there's a lot of compromise and a lot of giving, which of course I do.
We get a lot of comments from customers.
Peggy does.
Because we come out together, we say we've been married. We're going to be married 36 this year, 36 years this year, and the customers are like amazed that we can work together, and that we've been married that long.
Still married, yeah. Okay, any other questions? I want to make sure that you get a chance. Did you get, okay, Malay?
Well, I have 9 questions.
You have 9 questions. Okay, we don't have time for 9 questions. Pick the one that's most on your mind, and then you can talk to him personally.
We'll have coffee.
During lunch. Yeah. Go ahead, pick one.
Okay, what's the best advice for new business owners, like the new, younger version? Like there's some girls 18 years or 19 years old who want to start their own boutique or clothing line. What is the best advice?
Yeah, I think you want to, first of all, you want to start a business that you really, enjoy, doing, or that you have, it's one of your, spiritual gifts or your gifts from God, and so, and then, I think it's important to have a business plan as far as the demographics of the area. There's financial things as far as making sure that whatever business you want to start, you start in the right area, because different areas you're going to have more of the demographics wanting what you're offering at your boutique, than maybe somewhere else.
I heard people say to me, "Do not share your idea with other people because they steal that idea." Is it true? Because I've been telling my idea, and just because I just want to inspire people.
Well, the Bible says, "Be gentle as a dove, but shoot as a viper, but gentle as dyslexia."
Wise as a serpent, harmless as a dove.
Right. So yeah, you don't want to put your cards out. You want to be wise about your plans, and there's nothing wrong with that. You're not being unchristian if you are holding back stuff, because business is competitive, and you can't lose all perspective. You can't get all spiritual. God is, as much as we are spiritual, we're also humans, and we are functioning in this world, and there are enemies out there, and there's going to be competition. You want to be nice to your competition and be loving to them, and you don't want to ever be cross or anything that's going to defile your witness. So yeah, I wouldn't share your idea, every idea. No, keep it inside. Yeah, just keep it in and just execute it.
Right. I would also say, know your competition, know your industry well, know your product well, and what you need to find out one of the keys of being successful in any industry is how you differentiate your product, your service from other companies that are doing the same thing in the industry. There's got to be something a little bit different, something people are looking for, but you got to know your competition. As Peggy says, know your market. before you go in. Be studied up on it, and then seek counsel. It's part of knowing your problem.
And as I said, you've got having lunch together. They're here for another couple of hours. You can ask them whatever other questions you want. But let's have one more. I know someone else had a question. One more, and then we'll have a time of prayer.
Yes. Prioritizing your family life and your business acumen. How do you all put that together? What are your hard moves? How do you divide your time? Day to day.
Well, I think we were really blessed because we only have one child, but we were really blessed. Rick, when he started the business, Nate was like 3, about 3 years old. Yeah, so we started the business, and so when we started the business, I worked full time, and then Rick worked part time, so he was able, to spend time with our son. He took him to nursery school, picked him up, and had time to spend with him.
She worked full time in a different business,
I worked for State Farm Insurance, and so and then when the business grew and was doing better, then I worked part time, still at State Farm, and then Rick was doing the business, and then I had more time to spend with our son, and work in the classroom and doing things like that. With him, driving him on field, driving him and other kids on field trips. And just really, to me, like that's just like so valuable, time.
It's a difficult balance, though. Very difficult balance. Most businesses fail. Most small businesses do fail. It's just a statistic. So you have to look at how you're going to support the startup of a business and also manage a family in that. That's a very difficult, different dynamic for every family. These guys have a lot of kids. We just
have one.
I think you have to recognize or agree that it's a joint effort between the husband and the wife. Every family's environment is different, so obviously what works for us is not going to work for you. But I think the key is understanding that you're both on the same page. That's always have to be the key, so that you can support each other instead of actually, making each other enemies. I heard this counsel, don't ever make your husband appear like your enemy, no matter what situation it is, And when I heard that, I just took it to heart, and always have to resolve within myself first that I can't make him my enemy right now when we're going through things, So you just make sure you always have to be on the same page, and I think with that, things just kind of work out.
Or if you're a single person too, like if Jillian wanted to start a business, she has a son, there has to be a balance there, and the business that she would want to start would be something that would be compatible with being able to spend time, with each.
And I did try to limit my work hours. When you own your own business, you can work just crazy hours, and so you do have to find that balance. And so I tried, never perfect at it. I tried, I'm not going to schedule patients after this amount of time. Or now that I've shifted over to being a dental consultant, I'm not. I've even told my boss I'm done at 4:30. I'm done. And so you do have to, and you have to just trust the Lord, especially if you have your own business. Okay, I'm gonna cut off at this time, and I'm gonna devote to my family. You have to find that.
Or you might work it, like I used to work at nighttime sometimes after. Just leave
early,
wake up earlier in the morning, to make sure you had that time.
Okay. Kevin, did you have our last question?
It's not a last question. It's just a statement.
Go ahead.
I really feel blessed to be in front of you guys. For you guys to be in front of me, to understand the functioning of a Christian person, a family, a couple, owning a business or working and being able to prioritize everything together and under God. And I just want to say that you guys all look beautiful, and that I admire what you guys are doing.
Amen. Thank you. That's a wonderful conclusion to our discussion. That is